Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Q&A. Our question today is about getting and giving feedback. So this comes from a parent who said, when I'm homeschooling my kids, I have to correct their work, and they really don't like getting feedback from me. What should I do?
I think parents have a new appreciation for teachers in this quarantine because, wow, schooling our kids is actually really hard. We're all discovering. And the question about feedback is a good one because that is one of the special skills that teachers have. Teachers have another advantage that parents don't have, which is that teachers are not their students' parents. And I think, especially getting negative feedback, criticism, correction from your mom or your dad, it's really hard for almost every young person to take. So you're not alone. I think this question will resonate with so many parents who are struggling with this very challenge. My advice is to understand why it is that people get defensive about feedback. And to begin, you can reflect on the last time someone gave you advice about honestly anything. And the thing about feedback, which is so interesting to me, is that it's so easy for our egos to be threatened, even when it's not really an identity relevant thing. Like loading the dishwasher should not be something that is core to my personal identity. And then when my husband says I'm doing it the wrong way, like, why does it bother me so much? But it does. And just reflecting on the fact that you too can be defensive and rejecting of feedback, I think is a good start. And maybe one more thing you could do, and Mike, I'm interested to hear about your last, criticism. Like, when did someone tell you something you didn't want to hear? But one thing you could do is like share that story, right? Like share the last time that you felt defensive with your own child. Maybe not at the time you're doing homework, and so maybe over dinner, maybe over breakfast. And I think that will help them realize that their feelings are normal, but that also helps them start to get over those feelings.
Yeah, I think there are two things that I've learned about, well, many things I've learned about this, but two that I think are pretty interesting. One, someone shared with me that when it comes to feedback and people's reaction to it, most people are still fighting their last battle, meaning that they're not actually often responding to you in that moment, but are rather displaying their insecurity about something else. And they're fighting that last battle and therefore trying to prove that they're okay at something or good at something. Or the other one comes from Kim Scott and her book Radical Candor, where she talks about you have to be someone who they know how much you care about them. And I know that sounds silly when it comes to a parent-child relationship here, but if there's this willingness to understand that this is coming from a good place, and I think the parent also has to ask, is this coming from a good place? Or am I just so sick of my teenager that I'm doing this in the wrong way or in a way that they won't accept it? Or is this coming from a spirit of love and mutual improvement? And no feedback is ever given well when it's, or received well, out of a moment of frustration or anger.
And here's a third tip from Adam Grant. I think it's Adam who came on. I think it's kind of brilliant, which is when he gets feedback, he feels defensive. So he started rating himself on how he took the feedback. And so there's the feedback, but then there's also how I took it. And I tried this out myself. So I gave a talk and I got feedback because I always ask, what could I do better? And so there's that, like you can imagine, like, well, how did I do on that talk, 0 to 10? But then there was, how did I handle the feedback itself? And then I gave myself a rating. And if I were really open and accepting, then I would give myself like a 9 or a 10. And if I were defensive, then I would give myself, a 0 or a 1. And just that act of kind of understanding that the name of the game isn't necessarily the feedback, it's how you handle it, right? Like, how are you processing criticism and other people's perspectives? And that little trick has really helped me a lot because it's really put feedback into perspective.
Yeah. I wonder how well kids can always apply that at that stage, but I think that's an important thing for everyone to think through is how can we make sure that we're always getting better? And parents, I think, can demonstrate that behavior by accepting and asking for the feedback as well. Angela, thank you for joining us for another episode of Q&A. To watch all the previous episodes of Q&A or to submit a question yourself, please go to qualtrics.com/Q&A. That's qualtrics.com/QANDA. Thanks.